Welcome to a new episode of Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. I can guarantee that so many parents are going to love this episode. You know why? Because we are talking about siblings. You got it, sibling rivalry. So many parents come to me crying on their knees. Dr. Shefali, I had all these children because I thought we would be a big, happy family. I thought we would all go on picnics together and get along, and my children would be best friends with each other. But instead, the reality is that they hate each other. They don't even like each other, and they're clawing each other's eyes out, and I am losing my mind. Sound familiar? Well, we're going to be tackling sibling issues in this episode. Coming up next, what would you do if your 3-year-old was kicking, biting, and screaming at the new baby? Many parents have to deal with siblings. What do we do with sibling rivalry? I cannot tell you how many clients come to me with this problem. In our next story, Nathaniel and Alexandra are in the midst of sibling issues. Their 3-year-old is biting, kicking, screaming, and kind of exhibiting dangerous behaviors around their younger one. Hi, Nathaniel and Alexandra. Welcome. So excited to have you here, and your beautiful family is joining you here today. Yes, so tell me what you're struggling with.
Our issue has been a somewhat radical change in behavior, where prior to our younger daughter being born, we were having a really love-filled time. Everything felt sweet and perfect in a way. We were talking to the baby in the belly, and everything was great. And within about a week of her being born, we noticed that our older one was exhibiting some very different behaviors, namely putting our younger one at risk.
I hear you. Let me ask Mom. Mom, you are, swaddling your baby, you're carrying your young one around. I presume you are breastfeeding on command. You seem like a very attuned parent who is very attached and connected. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. Spot on.
Okay. That she is. Okay. And before this new baby came, I presume you were very hands-on with your older one. And, the older one was very attached to you.
Yeah, she's my best friend.
Yeah, she's adorable. I see her before me right now. So, look at her. The listeners can't see what I'm seeing, but right now the older one is hugging the younger one because she's adorable. So here's what happens. Y'all are struggling to understand what is this rapid change of behavior, right? According to you and many parents out there, we do our best in preparing our children, right? We prepare them that, hey, little baby's on its way, and talk to the baby in the belly. And you think you're doing everything a conscious parent would do. But here's the thing. What you believe is concrete, talking to the baby in the belly, what you believe is preparation is not what your young one experienced. Here's how I can break it down for you. For the young one, talking to a baby in the belly is such an abstract concept. They're just going along with it because they're like, haha, hee hee, okay, let's talk to this imaginary friend. For them, it's like an imaginary fiction, creative piece, like a story, like a fairy tale. They're not understanding what on earth is about to descend on their house and in their life. You've had 9 months and 3 decades of a brain to understand and process. Your little one is 3 years old. She doesn't understand the difference between fiction and reality. She thought we're just playing pretend. That's what she thought. And she was the queen of her queendom. It was all about her. And here you go. Then this real, literal, concrete animal comes out. And they're like, holy cow, I didn't prepare for this. And this new person is stealing my right to the throne being the mother. And just before this young one came, I had full access to the throne. I was wearing the mini crown. I was the little queen of the house. And now I have been dethroned and pushed aside. And I wasn't ready for this. And no one told me that this was really for real. I thought we were just playing pretend. So all the behaviors that you're seeing are so predictable, are so on point. Your child is expressing her banishment from the kingdom and she's protesting. And because she doesn't have words, of course, she's trying to swat the flies, right? She's like, go away, little baby. You're the little pest. She is, protecting her territory, and rightfully so. Now, if parents begin to misattune with her very rightful need to protect her territory and begin calling her bad and begin favoring the young one, then you create sibling rivalry. But if you can use this moment to really understand that she's struggling with, her new place in this kingdom, she doesn't understand how she's been dethroned, and begin to really have compassion for her and understand that she's not using words to express her fear. She's biting and kicking and screaming because that's the level her brain is at. Then you can really bring her into the team, make her feel like she's still the queen. She's just the older queen. And here's the younger queen. And make her, really embody that role of protector and older sibling. So if you can look at every expression of her quote unquote negative behaviors as a cry for help, then you will enter your heart and have great compassion. Right now, between the two, the younger one needs you physically, but the older one needs you emotionally.
Totally. This is very in alignment with how we have treated this situation.
Wonderful.
We also had great conversations with her beforehand, letting her know, hey, when the baby comes, we will need you to be more independent and to do other tasks.
Can I just say, I don't think that's fair to ask her to be more independent. It's not her time yet to be more independent. In fact, she will and does have more needs now than even the baby, because the baby needs physical presence, and that's how the baby gets soothed. But the older one needs a full-on emotional attunement. So I would say give her actually more than you think a 3-year-old needs, because you're going by chronological age, but that's not what her emotional age is. Her emotional age is still very young. So it's not fair. And that's why they get resentful. That's why they actually feel territorial jealousy or possession, because they realize, hey, now I'm suddenly supposed to be a grown-up. I'm not ready. So let's really actually do the reverse of what you were expecting. Expect less, give her more. So then she begins to interpret the baby coming as, hey, I'm actually getting more. This is like a showering of abundance rather than a withering away of my resources, you see?
Yeah.
We're certainly doing our best to give that abundance and not wither the resources. We do spend some quality time one-on-one with her. I work out of the home and take breaks from work when she is extra needy.
Excellent.
One of the issues, she loves jumping. She's very energetic, classic 3-year-old, loves to play, jump off the couch. And sometimes we set our younger one on a mini couch right next to the couch. And she wants to jump over her or jump near her.
Yes, yes.
Worry about her landing on her.
Yes.
And do our best to create a healthy physical boundary.
Good.
So that there won't be, an altercation where she's in pain.
Good. Good.
We've also worked on, there was a very similar issue with me and my brother
Yes.
when I was born. And so I give her some of the stories of when I was a very young baby so that she can empathize with what I went
Beautiful, beautiful. But less talking is more effective. And I'll show you a way to do exactly what you were trying to do verbally in a physical way. Let's put her where the baby normally sleeps and tell her, you're the baby and I'm going to be you. Okay, so let her be the baby. So now you see you're creating empathy in a physical way because words don't land on children. They're not literal. Adults are literal because we're in our left brain. L for literal, left brain. Children are in their right brain, which is intuitive, abstract, dreamy, and very, very physical and artistic and creative. So make her be creative, put her in there and go, you're going to play the baby and I'm going to be you. And then you run all around her and be all chaotic. And then she's going to be like, oh yeah, I get it. And of course she won't get it in a permanent way, but that's a better way to create empathy. And the other thing I want to tell you is she's still your baby. So you need to give her baby time. You need to carry her around. You need to swaddle her because every adult around is so enamored with the new baby. We forget that this little girl is still your baby and treat her like that rather than making her more an adult.
Thank you for those reminders. That's gold.
That's a wonderful exercise too. We'll definitely try that.
Yeah, that's a new one for us.
Well, I think when parents have a second child close in age to the older one, we immediately expect the older one to suddenly be grown up. But what we don't realize is that they want to be babied. They want to be carried around. They want to be nurtured, just like the younger one. And because we don't give them that, they actually regress, which is what you're seeing. And then they do all these kind of crazy behaviors and they act so quote unquote childish because they're trying to tell the parents, hey, I still have baby needs still. I still need to be soothed. And all that baby coochie-coo talk is only going to the younger one. I need it. And she's so beautiful that she's so clearly telling you, as all children clearly tell us, but we don't read the signs. I often say, what are the signs? And the signs, SIGN, stands for something inside gone negative. The sign is that something inside is missing. And you both seem so attuned, so caring, but I think you're pitching her too much as the big girl, and she's not ready to be a big girl yet.
Yeah.
Got it.
Thank you so much.
Speak less to her intellectually and demonstrate more with behaviors.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Through the
Somewhat
actual doing.
lastly,
Yes.
we intend to have more children and wonder if you could give us advice about how to potentially avoid this situation in the future, or if there are any other tools to better navigate it when it does arise.
Well, what I'm about to tell you may seem a little unpopular because I'm not going to tell you, wow, go ahead and have an army. What I'm going to tell you is, go slow and see how each child adapts and go with their pace, not so much your agenda to have a big family, because many of us just get on our train and then we end up with a brood and the younger children displace the older children so fast that the older children then fall apart.
Sure. We're not in a rush.
Yes, good, because it's a lot, as you're seeing. Every extra child is like adding, 4 more children. It's exponential. It's not a linear growth. It's an exponential addition of stress and chaos. Yeah, but you all seem very attuned, and I know everyone is fidgeting now, so I'll let you go. But thank you so much for joining us.
We really
Thank you.
appreciate your time. Yeah. Thank you.
Y'all have been awesome. Thank you so much. I'm sure so many parents can relate with Nathaniel and Alexandra's story. So many of us get so perplexed by how our children treat their siblings. I mean, sibling rivalry is one of the top concerns of parents who come to visit me in therapy. We feel like we need to jump in. We need to play a referee. We don't know how to handle the explosion of emotions, especially from our older children. We expect them to behave differently. And without our realizing, by pushing our older siblings into greater responsibility and greater accountability, the older sibling begins to feel jealous. They feel a rivalry. They feel as if the younger sibling is getting all the favored treatment, even though that is not our intention. So I always tell parents, like I did with Nathaniel and Alexandra, that be mindful of how you treat the older one. The older one is feeling displaced. The older one is feeling like a culture shock in their system, in their family system. They're not prepared for the invasion of these younger siblings. And now they're being told that they have to share the resources, namely their primary caregivers. They have to share the food, the clothes, the space, but mostly and most importantly, their parents' attention. And this is where everything unravels, because when a child feels as if what was rightfully theirs, namely their parents' undivided attention, is now being compromised, that's where the emotional needs of the older ones feel neglected, and the older child begins to cry out in pain. But many of our children don't know, actually, many of us adults don't know how to ask for our emotional needs to be met in mature ways. Most of us temper tantrum. We yell, we scream, we eat too much. Well, our young ones are no different. So when we see our older siblings, the older children, lose their temper, act out, become moody and distracted, we parents need to interpret these as signs, something inside gone negative. The acronym SIGN can help us to realize that we need to pay attention to our children's inner emotional needs. So that's one of the key ingredients in helping, quote unquote, solve sibling rivalry. Understand what the older child needs. How do I meet the older child's needs and recruit them on my team to help me with the younger ones? But if you discard the older one and just expect them to behave immaculately, they are actually going to do the opposite, regress, and act out. Coming up next, a couple who is in the middle of sibling rivalry between their two young boys. I don't think there's a bigger trigger for us parents than watching our children fight with each other. Many of us had extra children, additional children, for that fantasy that our children will get along and they will be best friends and they will be so happy together when we die. And then when we see them clawing each other's eyes out, we have a panic attack. Joining me now is Mariana and Sergio. They are in the middle of sibling rivalry with their 6-year-old and 3-year-old, and they're here to talk about it. Hi, guys. Thank you for joining me. Tell me, Mariana, what is it that is the problem?
So my older one used to be I used to have a lot of fights with him. I used to get very angry at him and not have the patience because we didn't have any connection. But then I started having some connection with him, and the younger one started the outbursts and the tantrums and getting very jealous of my connection with the older one.
Okay. So, Mariana, what kind of parent were you in the first few years of your older son's life? Were you calm, or were you a fighter kind of parent?
I think the fighter in me has always been there. 2 years after I had him, I discovered that I had postpartum depression. So I was very present with him, but with everyone else in life, I was very absent and not there. He was the only thing I looked up to.
So then how did you go from that to being disconnected to him? You said you were disconnected to him later.
Because when he's 1 and 2, he really doesn't do that much. And he didn't really do anything to make me this fighter part of me come out.
Right. So then when he turns 3 and 4 and 5, you became a fighter parent with him.
Yeah.
And then you used to judge him as the bad one?
Yes.
Okay, and then how did it switch? And now the younger one, you feel, acts like he feels like the bad one?
I don't think he feels like the bad one, but he feels like the neglected one. In that moment, in, I don't know, 5-10 minutes that I'm connecting with the older one, the younger one is everywhere throwing things and if we're building a Lego or something like that, he will come and just destroy it all. And
when that happens, what happens to you when you see them fighting with each other? What gets triggered inside you?
I feel anger.
Okay, very, very clear to see that. Okay, Sergio, what do you feel?
I feel frustrated.
Okay, very good. Now, Mariana, when you feel anger, what do you do with that anger typically when you're being unconscious?
Okay, typically, I will scream to the one that is doing the hitting, and I will say like, "You shouldn't be doing that," and go to the younger one to hold him, and I usually tell the one that's hitting that whatever the reason is for him hitting is not the option.
And Sergio, what do you do when you feel frustrated?
I usually do the same. Like, the one that's hitting, I usually it's the one that I go to and tell him they're going to be brothers, forever.
You get angry, you show your anger, you play referee, you make one kid the bad kid, one kid the good kid, you go protect the good kid. And does this help, or does it just continue on and on?
Yeah, it continues on and on.
Exactly. I always tell parents that it's hard when you have two siblings to not go and protect the weaker one and to not go and yell at the one who's hitting. So what you're seeing between your siblings, the children, is very normal sibling rivalry. And what they're really fighting for is their place in the world. They're fighting for their rights to their mother, really. They're fighting for the hierarchy, who is on top of the totem pole. All of these things are quite natural, especially in the same sex siblings. So number one, right, is to become aware of your anger issues. And number two, to realize that you have begun playing referee so much that your children are angry at the other sibling because the other sibling gets them into trouble. So when you react with anger and frustration, you come at them with the same energy that they had toward the other. You see, you are mirroring the same energy and you're expecting them to stop. So you do see that, right? And it's so typical in us parents, right? We scream at our children, "Stop hitting your brother." But we are yelling and screaming and out of control. That doesn't change the reason why he's hitting. You see, in fact, it makes it worse. What's the typical effect? If somebody's yelling, you yell. So two people are now yelling and two people are out of control. So then we yell louder to be seen and heard. And all of us parents do that, right? If one kid throws an arrow, the parent throws a grenade. We have to do the opposite. So when somebody's at a 10, we have to do the opposite. Even though it's so hard to do, we have to get in at a -10 to bring them calmly down. Now, do you see how you've been doing the exact opposite?
Yeah.
Yes.
So let me ask you, Mariana, when you get angry, what do you think your anger is achieving? What is it getting you?
No, nowhere.
Nowhere.
No.
Nowhere. But in that moment, it's helping you release your stress, isn't it? In the moment.
Yeah, in the moment where I feel that anger, I feel like I have to say it, because if I don't say it, this will escalate to something else, and it doesn't even cross my mind in that moment what something else to do.
Exactly. But I love what you're saying, because every parent has that commentary. If I don't scream right now, it's going to get worse. So let me scream, and then it gets worse. And then we wonder why we are in this cycle and no one knows how to stop it. So in the same way, like you can't stop it, you think a 6-year-old can stop it? You think a 3-year-old can stop it? So if mommy and daddy are not regulated, how do we expect the children to be regulated? So I often use this acronym, PEACE, PEACE, right? We all want peace. So I'm going to teach you a technique, put it on your fridge and practice it. So P stands for pause, right? You just said, I don't even think to pause. It just vomits out of my body. So do you want your 3-year-old and your 6-year-old to learn how to pause? I would put the letter P everywhere in the house, and everybody practice every single day. You know, Sergio, you're the dad. You can say, okay, we're all going to practice the P. Everybody pause and teach them to freeze, like the freeze game. You are learning to interrupt that anger, to interrupt that aggression. Number 2, the letter E stands for executive functioning. So your children do not have the brain yet to create that calm, to create that order. Look at you, even you, Mariana. You said, I don't know how to stop. I don't know how to pause. I don't know how to organize. They're yelling because, like all children, don't have strong executive functioning. So you have to remember that. Not that they're bad, but they don't know how. A stands for attune. I always talk about attuning to our children because I think of our children as a tuning fork, which means that they start vibrating if we start vibrating. So if you can pay attention to your tune, to your inner language, to your anger, you can calm down, and then they, like a tuning fork, will slowly calm to your level. But if you're not attuned and careful and regulated, everybody is exploding. C, PEAC, C is always give your children creative choices. So in the moment, Mariana, instead of just saying, stop it, or you, Sergio, saying, I'm going to give you a timeout, that is not giving them a choice. So you have to say, I understand you're angry. You're really upset that your brother took your toy. Okay, let's think, what can we do about it? Can we ask him nicely? Or can we play with another toy? Or can mommy try to get the toy back? Just by pausing and giving them choices, not by just telling them don't do something, but by actually giving them choices, you are helping them activate their thinking skills. You're teaching them to activate, like, oh, I can problem solve. I'm not a bad kid. Mommy's not angry with me. Mommy's my partner helping me to problem solve. And then the last E is emotional regulation. If you both parents are angry and yelling and raising your voice, you don't have emotional regulation, so you will never have peace. First, the parent has to be calm. So you have to breathe. You have to practice how to enter your present moment, be calm, meditate, and then you can go to your children. So P stands for pause. E stands for executive functioning. A stands for attunement. C stands for creative choices. E stands for emotional regulation. If you want peace in the house, practice this. And that way you are going to get off the hamster wheel. So, Mariana, out of all the 5 things, pausing, executive skills, attunement, creative choices, and emotional regulation, which one do you think is going to be the hardest for you?
I think the hardest for me is the pause. I can most of the times, but the like that time where I can't is the pause that gets me.
That is the hardest one. That's why it's the first one in the whole list. If we cannot pause, we are actually giving into our emotional brain, right? Our lower brain, it's called, and we're not using the higher brain. So how will our children learn to use their higher brain if they're not seeing us use our higher brain? So the next time your child is acting out, instead of panicking, yelling, think to yourself, how can I teach my child executive skills? I'm going to have to pause. I'm going to have to be calm. I'm going to have to give choices. Do you want to teach them or do you want to just yell at them, right? That's the opportunity here. Sergio, what do you think is going to be the hardest thing for you?
Also the pause, because when, you can feel the anger just go and, like you said, it vomit out of you and you don't even think. It's just like reaction and you don't have the skills to communicate anymore with the children.
No,
and
you don't.
It's worse because they won't communicate with you. So it's just like you said, the hamster wheel, and you can't get off.
Exactly. So your children are fighting with each other because that is normal sibling behavior. But if the parents don't learn to manage their feelings and they go in and be referee and call one kid the bad kid and one kid the good kid, you are making the problem worse. You have to reframe it. Nobody's bad. They are just lacking the skills, just like I am. So pause, everybody, and go freeze. Let's practice. Each one of you take a deep breath, right? Teach them to calm down in the moment. Okay, now, A, you tell me what you think happened, and you listen to them. And then you go, B, now you tell me what you think happened. And then you go, okay, let's put on our thinking hats and make choices. How can we create a solution? and you can practice building solutions in that moment. But if everyone is just losing their temper, then no one is really thinking. So when you move forward from now on, remember, lower brain or upper brain? Where am I going to live? And if you're living in the lower brain, well, that's what's going to happen to your children as well. Thank you, both of you, for joining me. Such a pleasure. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you very much.
I'm sure so many of you parents could relate to that last story. You have young children. As it is, toddlers can be so frustrating, so time-consuming, so overwhelming. Their emotions are all over the map. And then put sibling rivalry on top of that, and you have a combustible home situation. So it's quite likely that most parents will be losing their minds. And if you are caught in the storm of sibling rivalry, you have to remember that part of this is a very natural and organic process of the child's development. Of course, they're going to rival with each other. Of course, they're going to be in each other's face and space. But how you react to the sibling rivalry is the key. And if you find yourself playing referee or being the judge or the scorekeeper and constantly pitting one against the other, you are only making it worse. The most important thing with sibling rivalry is, number one, first, hope that they will work it out themselves. Don't jump in to rescue and fix at any given notice. No, wait, hold yourself back. But if you've had sibling issues in your childhood, it may be hard for you to watch them go at each other. So I understand. But the best thing a parent can do is hope and help the children to deal with the sibling issues themselves. Number two, are you regulated? Are you coming to the siblings with calm, or are you constantly aggressive and angry and volatile? Well, that's not going to help anyone. And then lastly, are you in your higher brain? Like I said, we have this lower, more primitive emotional brain where we are impulsive, where we are impetuous, where we are reactive and volatile. But then when we begin using higher brain skills of emotional regulation, of offering choices, of taking a pause, now we teach our children to model after us. So siblings, listen, they can get anyone into a tizzy. When they fight with each other, it feels like you are constantly having to put out fires. I understand. But siblings at the end of the day will model how you are with them, and they will eventually learn to get along when they see that you are not playing referee. See, the thing that gets siblings triggered the most is when they feel that the parent favors one child over the other. So check yourself, pay attention to your triggers, manage your own expectations, and calm the hell down, because your children need that from you. This is the art of conscious parenting. If you learned a lot from this episode and this helped you with your sibling rivalry issues, then share it with others who are suffering in the same way. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and I will see you on the next episode of Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. Parenting and You with Dr. Shefali is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical, psychological, psychotherapeutic, coaching, healthcare, or other qualified professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment.